What inspired you to make the jewellery like with the materials that you use, like such as tie wraps and plastic?
I think I always like new things, and my previous background, my first degree is in an engineering related degree, so I originally studied human cybernetics before I retrained. So I think it's just I like new things and I like experimenting with what you can do, so it's kind of, even when I'm not necessarily using a new material, I will use new techniques with it, or I'll push myself to see, I wonder if this happens, what happens next. And often some of my best designs come out that way, even if I'm not changing the material. It's like, I'll start with one idea and it's like, I can see where this goes next, and it's kind of following down that path. And it's the same thing with the materials, and I like putting unusual things together as well.
Good. How come you changed from human cybernetics to?
I've kind of done lots of different things. So my first degree is in human cybernetics, which is kind of like engineering-y, computer science-y, psychology kind of thing. I specialise in looking at robots. And then I trained as an accountant, and I worked as an accountant for about 10 or 11 years. And I loved doing that. And I lived in Tokyo and I lived in Spain, and I've done all kinds of stuff, and I suppose I might do it again in the future. Something I really enjoyed doing. And then I just thought I need to do something else, and this is what I wasn't brave enough to do at 18. I wasn't brave enough to go to fashion college and stuff, and it's kind of doing something that I've always been interested in and believing that I was good enough to do it.
Yeah, so like you're living a childhood dream now doing...
Yeah, I suppose so. And doing the engineering related degree was a childhood dream as well. I've done really good things, and intellectually I find it very stimulating. And this is just really nice getting to kind of do creative things now as well.
What is the inspiration around your new collection?
My new collection's inspired by the bridges over the River Tyne, and the colours are all taken from kind of the colours on the quayside at night, so that kind of browny black cityscape sky with the really bright lights. Really it is, and it's the other thing that I love about the bridges over the Tyne is everyone from the northeast has a favourite bridge, and everyone has a different reason for it. Everybody feels attached to them, and it was trying to get some of that through. And for me, I love the engineering background coming out again, and I love the lines you get. And so I think, if you come from the northeast, part of the appeal of the collection is that it is of the Tyne bridges. But if you don't come from the northeast, they're still beautiful lines and they're beautiful pieces to wear.
How did you go about opening your own, obviously you had the idea to make your own jewellery line, but then how did you come about doing it all and getting your own shop? How was the experience doing that?
Well, people talk about there being a learning curve. They're lying. It's not a learning curve, it's a vertical learning cliff. And you kind of hang on by your fingertips, and it's exciting, and you kind of just have to go for it. If it's what you want to do, you don't get there by accident. I remember when I was at college, one of my tutors saying that when she was training and she looks back at kind of all the people who are really talented, and she was saying the people who make it aren't the people who are the most talented necessarily, they're the people who work the hardest. And it's really, really true. You have to graft. And it's, you think you're going to spend all this time making and designing, and actually you don't. And so for me, it's such a treat when I sit down to make, or when I sit down to design. But the upside of that is that I tend to design over quite a long period of time, and I love that because it kind of melds in your mind and kind of mushes around a bit, and you look at something and then you go, oh, and what about this, and what about that, and what about the other, and you have that because you're not trying to cram it into a small space of time. It's kind of, you have a long elapsed time, and that's quite a nice way to work.
Obviously you do it over a long period of time. How long does it take to finally to finalise?
The collection that I did before that, which was the landscape collection, I worked on for about 6 months, on and off. And there are big things happening in that time. So, for example, I had a run of big exhibitions, and that wipes out weeks and weeks and weeks. But it was quite good because it was I went to one of the big jewellery fairs in London in February, and I was sat working on some of the landscape pieces, and it's really nice because people can see you working, they can see where you're going, and you can get their feedback as well, and it makes use of the quiet times.
Do you have any tips for someone who has done what you've done and just started to scratch?
You need your website much quicker than I got mine, so it's the first thing you need to do, and you need a good quality website, and you need really good images. Images are so important. I think you also need to find people around you who can be really supportive. I think, my family is supportive of what I'm doing, but they don't really get it. And actually you need to be around people who get it as well. So it's kind of like, they don't necessarily need to be in the same field as you, but working for yourself and setting up is kind of, it's a really specific way of working, and it isn't like just starting a new job. And you need other people who are in the same position as you, or maybe a few years on, who are going, yeah, you're not being stupid, I did that too. You know, everybody makes lots of the same mistakes. Everybody finds the same things hard going, and knowing that you're not alone in that is really important. So it's about finding good networking opportunities. So for example, I'm part of the Inspire network, which is a North East women's networking group, and it's fabulous because there are lots of people around who are helping on that, and they can go, oh yeah, I did this, or this is how you solve that problem. And I'm on a few networking groups for artists and makers, and also I know a few designer makers who are just that little bit further on from me. And the thing that's fabulous is that actually people are generally really helpful and supportive. You know, I'm gobsmacked by how generous people are. You know, it's kind of when I can't get something to work, technically, for example, I was trying to do something with a pair of earrings and I couldn't get it to work, and another jeweller explained to me how I did it, and suddenly it opens up new possibilities for me. And I think that's one of the things I love working at this kind of, this category of work, so working at a reasonably high end, that people are happy to share with you, and you know, and I love that I can now do that to other people.
You said your customers are a big part of it, like with the feedback they give you. Did you think it was hard finding people that kind of got what you were doing to give you feedback in like a creative, positive way?
I think people very rarely say negative things to your face. I hear people saying them as they walk past me. But mostly people are really constructive. People want you to succeed. People aren't horrible. People are nice in general. And actually it's just about sharing that positivity. You know, it's about talking to people, about being friendly with them. You know, it's kind of like, can I do something to make this better for you? And people will tell you if you ask them. You know, it's kind of like, for example, I had one lady who was saying she always got really irritated because she loses earrings that are on ear wires, and so now I always take little things that you can put on the back of ear wires so that they don't come off. You know, it's not a difficult thing for me to do. It's not an issue for me, so I never thought of doing it. But now I can provide that for people.
And that's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time and for doing the photo shoot. And I hope to see big things from you.